In a ruthless bid to obtain his wife's $10 billion fortune, the man tied her up with vines and abandoned her on a deserted island before sailing away. However, his wife remained calm. She quickly freed herself and gathered all the usable tools around her. Unbeknownst to her husband, she had tampered with the boat beforehand. As the vessel drifted farther away, the rope she had secretly tied to a rock grew taut, and within seconds, the speedboat shattered into pieces. Yet, the man survived. His wife, a skilled former archer, wasted no time crafting a simple bow and arrow using branches and vines, preparing to give him a deadly surprise. Meanwhile, the man, having reached the shore, began searching for her. As he wandered through the dense forest, he stumbled upon a dark cave. Suddenly, the eerie sound of shouting filled the air, and he turned to see a group of natives. His curiosity quickly turned to horror when he noticed the hanging skulls around him. These people were cannibals. Terrified, he sprinted back into the woods, only to come face to face with his wife. Before he could utter a word, she fired an arrow that lodged into a tree beside him. Without hesitation, she drew her bow again and released another arrow. The man barely managed to duck behind a tree just in time. As his wife stepped onto a rock, preparing for a fatal shot, he grabbed a nearby stick to deflect the attack, narrowly avoiding death. By the time she looked again, he had already disappeared deep into the forest. Determined to gain the upper hand, the man sneaked up behind his wife the next day, clutching a stick. With a swift swing, he struck her on the head, knocking her unconscious. But as he stepped closer to check on her, he unknowingly triggered a hidden trap and found himself hanging upside down in the air. His loud screams woke his wife, but before she could act, footsteps echoed nearby. The cannibals were closing in. She quickly discarded the stick and ran. The man, now in a panic, flailed his arms and legs wildly, managing to swing onto a vine and narrowly escape. Meanwhile, his wife was also being chased, eventually stumbling into the cannibals' lair. Just as they were about to surround her, a large hand reached out from the darkness and pulled her into a cave. It was her husband. Their ongoing battle ended in that moment, and they decided to put their differences aside to escape together. However, before they could get far, they were both struck by tranquilizer darts. The cannibal chief had no intention of eating them immediately. Instead, the wife was tied to a stake, set to be burned as a sacrifice to the fire god, while the husband was placed in a canoe, destined to be an offering to the water god. As the canoe drifted closer to the edge of a massive waterfall, the man used every ounce of strength to grab onto a rock and pull himself out of the water. Thinking fast, he disguised himself as one of the cannibals and infiltrated their group. Seizing the perfect moment, he charged forward and knocked the chief to the ground. He then kicked away the flames surrounding the stake, freed his wife, and together they made a desperate run for it. With the cannibals in pursuit, the couple had no choice but to leap off a cliff into the water below. The man pulled his wife onto the shore, quickly located a canoe, and with no time to spare, they paddled away, finally escaping the dreaded island.